Hey girl, I just want to let you girls know that I'm a real messy bitch. A liar. A scammer. I love robbery and fraud. I'm a messy bitch who lives for drama.
Welcome back to Coffee Rhetoric and Happy New Year. Today I have a special guest and we are going to get into some things. We are going to talk about some grifting, fraudulent sons of bitches. I'll be back in a minute. Hello, welcome back to Coffee Rhetoric. I am your intrepid host, Tiffany J, with the first live stream of 2023. I hope everybody's doing well, and hopefully 2023 will be a bit more kinder and gentler to us. But enough of all that. Today, I have a special guest, and we are going to be delving into the year's most nefarious scammers and grifters. I'm talking people who have done large scale fraudulent things that have impacted people's lives and not for the better. Um, you know, the years change, seasons change, we're in a new year, but scamming never dies. So on that note, I would like to introduce my guest, Edie Spencer. There she is. Edie, how are you?
I am, girl, listen, I am doing so well. It was a beautiful New Year's Day. It was sunny. I did my first jog of the year, probably my last jog of the year, just to make sure all the things are working. I have last night's champagne. I'm now at that age where one good glass is good enough at this point.
I've got my rosé here.
Well, chin chin, my darling.
Cheers and Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Stay beautiful and stay black and gorgeous, because honestly,
absolutely.
that's my wish to every, especially if you're white, stay black and gorgeous.
Absolutely. Now, what is this saying?
We made it. We survived another year of the virus that is determined to kill all life on Earth. Like, girl, we are surviving.
Yes.
I think that is like our motto for this year, is that we are survivors. So
absolutely. And I'm gonna just say it. Fuck manifest, all this trite manifestation, crap. Screw all this hustle culture. Screw all this magical Negro. Just be kinder and gentler to yourself and do the best you can with what you have to work with.
Yes.
That's it. Otherwise, you're gonna be like some of these people we about to talk about, because you find yourself trying to do the absolute most in performing for people, and for what, and then it'll never be enough, and then you end up just doing a whole lot of very questionable things, to try to make it, like these people did, and they ruined so many lives. So I wanted to, you are in this new year, and like I said earlier, seasons change, the years change, we get older, grumpier, but one thing that always endures are people, scammers, grifters.
Scamming never dies. That
needs to be
like a James Bond film, for real.
We need to put that on a t-shirt.
He just, one scam after the other. He's like, do I have to kill all of you fools? God.
So I had to. So let's get in. Should we? Oh, and before we get into it, Edie, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself before we start?
Okay. Well, this is Tiff J's show, but let me introduce myself for those who are either here or may catch this on a replay. Hello, my name is Edie Spencer. You can call me Edie because Edith. What are my Caribbean parents? What were they thinking? I like Tiff J. We actually went to the same college in Wisconsin, and but barely crossed paths. I am currently an IT operations specialist at a company that is a peer-to-peer payment company. I can't name it for obvious reasons. And if you ever run into Google my name, you see I'm working someplace, please know that what I'm about to say on this show does not reflect the perspective of the company that I currently work for.
Yeah, keep that check intact.
No, seriously, no. And so that's why I have to say that. But originally, I went to school I'm a trained scientist, and I have a graduate certificate in water management, and I have a dual BA in both biology and in philosophy of science. I have worked various jobs, including as I've worked as a scientific writer. I've worked as a tech and researcher. I've also took a dive into screenwriting, and I've had several projects optioned but never produced. It just landed in what we call development hell. I am now an IT professional. I've been an IT professional for the last 15 years.
Wow.
Hear that my guests are coming in, so if you hear noise, please forgive the kids who are here.
Okay. Hello, guests. Welcome to Coffee Rhetoric.
And I'm gonna let them know, hi guys, I'm streaming right now. So they're good kids. So I live in Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
So I am really, really fortunate to be here. And that's me. Ask me anything about like sci-fi, Afrofuturism, technology, and DIY. So, so all over the place, but yeah.
And all of these outstanding credentials, and I bet you didn't have to scam to get to accomplish any of it. You didn't have to lie, cheat, scam your way to the top, or steal any top secret government documents. But on that, so let's get into this because I'd say over the last maybe 3 years, we have seen some pretty gnarly grifters.
Oh God, yeah.
Coming from Madoff. I think one of the most notable ones was Bernie Madoff, but since Bernie Madoff, we have seen some pretty gnarly grifters. Let's get into it. Let's unpack why.
Yes.
Let's unpack why they are how they are, and and why they get away with scamming and why they get to do it for so long. So you see, I have a whole presentation.
Good.
So let's get into.
I have notes too, and I even have a philosophical theorem about all of this nonsense. So let's do this. Let's
do it. So. Scams. This presentation called scams, right? Ponzi schemes, fraud, grifting, tax evasion, and other cons. Okay. Now, the first person I want to roast and gag. I mean,
Yeah, this bitch.
let's talk because social
Oh
media.
shit, he was in Sing Sing? Good God! Sing Sing is okay. Here's my surprise, Tiffany. Sing Sing is still open.
So let's get into Bishop, and yes, I spelled it like this on purpose. Bitchop Lamore Whitehead. The anatomy of the church fraud, right? So
Yeah.
this man is a convicted felon.
Mm-hmm.
And some brief facts. In 2008 he was charged with multiple counts of identity theft and convicted that same year. He served 5 years in Sing Sing correctional facility. I guess that's where he started his church grift. He
Yes,
started,
it is.
going through the process of getting these various accreditations. He was released in 2013. He filed for personal bankruptcy in 2006. In 2021, he was sued in New York by a former congregant who claimed that he defrauded her out of her life savings to the tune of 90 grand, right? So Whitehead and his wife. So how he came to my um radar is
Right.
that whole church where he and his wife, that
Yes.
weird kind of live stream of them being robbed around to the church house in that rundown church.
Right.
And it seemed like the robbers specifically targeted him. And then,
Yes.
it brought up a lot of questions like, okay, is
Why
the
just him
stage? Why
and not
just
the
him?
whole congregation?
Yeah,
Right.
and it's
Right.
the stage. Apparently they've caught some suspects. So okay, it wasn't staged. However, you're in this rundown. You're ministering to people in this rundown building, church, right?
Right.
But you and your wife, why do you need to? Now he claims that some nearly $1 million in jewelry, and other gaudy accoutrements were stolen. Why
Right.
do you, if you're ministering to working class people, you're in this rundown kind of building, why do you and your wife need to come to church in thousands and millions of dollars in jewelry? That's number one. He's known for being very flashy, very gaudy. They say that so Whitehead and his wife were robbed at gunpoint in 2022
Yes.
while ministering at their rundown church. The thieves allegedly stole $1 million worth of jewelry. Then in December, then up this, just this past December 2022, he was
Mhm.
arrested for the same thing. He went to jail for conning
For
people,
fraud and
extortion,
extortion. Yeah. Yeah.
and stealing from this woman to fund. Now, under the guise of this woman forked over her life savings. And oftentimes older people do fall prey to these
They do.
kind of uh
Very charismatic. Yeah.
shady prosperity pimps, preacher
Yes.
pimps. And she forked over the money because he told her he could invest in a new home for her. But instead he invested in a new home for himself,
Yeah.
and he used it to fund his lavish lifestyle. And he basically told her, oh yeah, well, your money was an investment in him. And
Right.
so all this stuff is finally coming to a head, and he has to answer for it. But in the meantime, while all
But
this was
she's
going
still
on,
out her money.
she's still
And
out of her money.
and
And
this is the thing, Tiff. And I'm gonna let you finish, but
no, go ahead, Edie, go ahead.
I I saw this with my own mother, and I'm seeing this with my much older sister, who's 12 years older um, than I am. In which, and I've seen this also with other Caribbean, Black Caribbean women and African American women in our community when growing up in Bed-Stuy, in which you have these women who literally, they've worked themselves to the bone. They save assiduously. They are the ones who get the last of the meat on the Sunday table. They are the ones who go without a new girdle and like say, okay, I'll make this girdle work for one more year and save that money. They are the ones who have that money in a dime savings banks. They are the ones who are tithing faithfully. So these preachers know that, especially our elder black women have, when they come to their 60s and 70s, they have quite a bit of money in the bank. They may look very plain, very drab, but they know from that lifetime of just saving pennies that these women have money in the bank. And that is why these preachers set themselves up in these working class neighborhoods. That's why they make sure they openly choose kind of crummy, rundown buildings. They don't really like have a church structure fund or anything like that. They don't need it, because the whole idea is to shake down these women who at the end, it's not the end of their lives, but they're now in their elder years and they don't have a lot of faith in the American system, as they shouldn't. And it's the church, this idea that God somehow will reward their hard work and sacrifice and suffering. This is how these preachers work. And so they feel justified in being gaudy because they feel that,
and having people pay for a jet for them.
Yes. Like first class tickets, gaudy suits made on Savile Row. When I spent my time in Europe, it was not unusual to go into like the bespoke shops. And the bespoke shops, we African American men are our best customers, and a lot of them are part of the church. And it didn't, and I had to like put two and two together, and like, oh yeah, that's why they have like these suits made of fine suede silk or whatever, because you can't find that fabric here in the States. You have to go to Europe and find it.
Meanwhile, a lot of their congregants are struggling. They can't get help. They don't pour into their communities. They don't care about social justice issues.
No.
They just care about enriching their own lives. Because even when all of this stuff was going on, in the midst of all of this stuff, then there was that one video that went viral of him putting hands on a Black woman, like assaulting a Black woman in his church. Like he was just really cutting up. And it's like, if anybody should be staying under the radar, it's you. Then he decided he wanted to be it's like his cockiness knew no bounds. Then he decided, I want to be social media famous. So then he decided to hop on social media. He got into it with a lot of what I'll call church influencers, who are with large platforms on social media, like Larry Reed, King Jives. And then, he's on there calling, making just really, really, really defamatory accusations against Larry Reed. He's on there body shaming a Black woman, a Black pastor. He's on there with all kinds of anti-gay epithets. This man was cutting up. And it's like, meanwhile, rumors started circulating that the federal, that the feds were watching him. And so here we are.
Oh yes.
That woman's money. He got arrested just this past month. And, basically the feds rolled up on him like,
okay, why are you so mad?
Because you're a liar.
8/28/2014, $35. Fraud.
Get out of here, suck my dick, bitch.
$33.
What's up?
Fraud. $15.33. Fraud. $8. What type of bitch steal $8?
Basically. And so here he is.
Here he is. Tears and sweat and all of that. Look at this. I mean,
social justice. Many of them are. This is true. Let me see who said that. Somebody said, this is from Facebook. I don't know why people's names never showed up from Facebook. But no, you're right. A lot of them are just like, to hell with social justice. Many of them do uh lean into right-wing extremism. You look at you look at that coon cricketish picture of the black pastors and let's keep it real. That was a very coon cricket moment. Okay.
It really was.
You look at them, you look at that, all these black pastors laying hands on Donald Trump, shortly after, so
His
no, this
election,
is true. They are. Many of them are. That's Eric. Oh, Erica. How you doing, Erica Palmer?
Hey, girl.
Many of them laying hands on that man, that troglodyte that was squatting in the White
Let's not be named.
So this is true. Many of them don't give a damn about social justice. They don't give a damn about pouring into their communities.
No.
So we are, and I hope he took that woman's life savings,
which is just foul.
Once a fraud, always a fraud. He's also he was also in trouble for extortion and a slew of other things. And so here we are. Here he is, and I hope he pays him and his tacky suits. Now,
oh God! So I mean, I was looking at the suits, and I'm like, I know that shit is made in Europe because I've seen people walking on Champs-Élysées or Carnaby Street wearing those same tacky ass suits, and those suits. To us, they're tacky because we're American and we have that. But what they do they announce through the materials and they announce through the patterns and everything. So I have money. I have enough money to be tacky. Yeah, I have enough, exactly. and I am going to rub it into your face visually by wearing loud, mismatched patterns and jewelry to let you know. And I'm
better than you, and that like I'm gonna wear $1 million worth of jewelry in church. This is also nothing screams scam. Nothing screams scam like calling yourself a pastor and wearing gaudy jewelry to church. And also,
$1 million worth.
Who christened him as a bishop? Who told him he was a bishop?
Thank you. As a former Catholic, I want to know. I want to know. What in the Martin and Luther? No. How are you a bishop of what? That in itself of calling yourself a bishop is if you go into my former belief system, that in itself is a sin.
Mm.
You can call yourself a pastor, a preacher, but to call yourself a bishop means that you have certain responsibilities. And no, sir, that's not you. You have not shown yourself to have those responsibilities, and you do not have those responsibilities. His only focus is using the word of Christianity to
con people. And I hope he gets everything. And I just want, as a brief disclaimer, as I get knee deep in this rosé, because it's good quality rosé. The roast and gags, it's just going to go balls to the wall. I'm just warning y'all now.
As it should.
So let's go on to the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
fuck this bitch. As a biologist. Fuck this bitch.
Rub.
Fuck this bitch.
Birdman rub.
Fuck this bitch. You chose the right bitch to roast this bitch. Because let me tell you something about Miss Holmes. Okay?
Let's start with that fake robotronic deadpan.
Theranos. I wrote a letter to Science. I wrote a letter to Forbes when they splashed her face on the magazine. I wrote a letter to the New York Times. And they were not the same letters. But I laid out the case that it was scientifically impossible at that time for her device of what she was saying to do.
Let me cut it because when she first proposed this idea, one of her professors basically said the same thing, like, this is impossible.
Right.
There's no way you're going to be able to,
There's a whole
see this kind of
biophysics
technology.
thing
Yeah,
that is
like a
involved
professor,
here.
like a
Yeah.
woman professor called her out. So let's get into some of the fuck shit she did. So Elizabeth Holmes,
Hmm.
with her fake deep voice and her
Girl,
what's that guy's name from Apple? What's his name? Steve Jobs,
Steve.
and her Steve Jobs turtlenecks. So it's basically she started a company called Theranos, and Theranos claimed to have revolutionized blood testing. Forbes named Elizabeth Holmes as, and she had a weird contentious relationship with her mother. I guess the mother was so yeah, but that's neither here nor there. But she was head of a company. She came from her background. She came from a life of privilege. She
Yes.
was the head of a company called Theranos that claimed they revolutionized blood testing. A professor told her that's not going to work. That sounds stupid. But she found some dim-witted millionaires and billionaires who threw checks at her. Forbes named her the youngest, wealthiest, self-made female billionaire in 2015. Fraud claims began surfacing about Elizabeth Holmes back in 2016, doubting the company's claims. Yes, George Shultz, the former Secretary of State, being one
Please
of the
keep that in
suckers.
mind, and keep that in mind, because his
Yes.
own grandson,
Yes.
his own grandson, put two and two together, and Schultz was ready to disown the grandson. Please keep this in mind.
Yes. So we're going to get there. But yes,
Okay.
this is true. George Schultz was also one of the suckers who got duped. So what else? So fraud claims started surfacing about her the following year, right after she was named Forbes youngest, wealthiest, self-made female billionaire. So then after that, she was charged with bilking millionaires and billionaire investors by the SEC in 2018. She was indicted that same year for fraud and her fake biotech. This, for me, this is the most noteworthy thing to think to me. This is the most important note. Her fake biotech ruined the lives of sick patients. Okay.
Yes.
In some instances, some of them passed away.
Yes.
But here's the thing that pissed me off when she was charged, when she was indicted, and when the court came, when everything was said and done, and it came to a crescendo in court. She was only charged with defrauding wealthy investors. So she was found guilty out of 4 out of the 11 charges. So basically, the millionaires and billionaires got justice, but the patients that
Precisely.
lost money, that got sick, that died, they got no justice. Their loved ones got no justice.
And by the way, the people who there was I am basing this on. There was a book written by John Carreyrou, who is an investigative reporter with Wall Street Journal, and I made an ass of myself when he was here in town. Because I was yelling at him, and he was like, I addressed that in the book, Miss Spencer. But I feel it's good to have a Black woman yell at you when you write a book exposing this, because I surely was not the first Black woman scientist who smelled bullshit. Her teacher, her professor, who is a white woman, called her on this bullshit. And what John Carreyrou proposed, and what I'm going to propose for the rest of the people that we're going to roast over this open fire, is that what she was trying to do was what many companies in Silicon Valley who are involved in the tech software as service sphere try to do, is what we call vaporware. And so with vaporware, that is an improvement or a service or a product that is promised and it is proposed, and then you basically either fake it and make it, or it fizzles away into the ether. And so if it fizzles away into the ether, it's called vaporware. But it doesn't matter because the company has still pulled in all this money for R&D, for research and development. And I do agree with Carrie Lou, was that Holmes carried out this fraud thinking like a software as service company, without understanding the Hippocratic oath that is behind each and every single one of the pharmaceutical companies. Whether we like Big Pharma or not, Big Pharma promises to do no harm. It is the most ancient of oaths that a person can make in Western civilization. Is that if I put my hands on you or do something to you to help you in a medical space, I cannot do harm. It may not do anything at all, but I cannot do harm. I cannot do harm to you because I have taken an oath to the gods that I cannot do harm to you. And what Holmes did not understand, and what a lot of the people who were around her did not understand, was this central oath that medical professionals make. And medical professionals are everyone from doctors to registered nurses to CNAs to the janitors in hospitals. What they do, we cannot do harm. As someone who has worked in a testing laboratory, when you get those results, what people don't understand is that we're actually testing several times because we often cannot trust what we see. Observation of a particular phenomena can bring in biases. So there's blind testing. There's blind testing on top of what we do in the laboratory. And so all of those things that you would do in any ethically run laboratory, it was not done at Theranos.
It was not done. What I think another thing that kind of surprised me was just how, number one, with all those facts and knowing that this wasn't a sure thing, that how so many investors just threw millions and billions of dollars at her, and then how Walgreens just jumped on board.
Yes, because part of it, which Carrie Lou alludes to in his book, but doesn't say it right, is for the last 10 years, so more now actually, there has been this thing of the very wealthy. They have all this money, they have all this cash, and they're looking for the next big thing to grow their money in evermore. And so you have a lot of like these what we call unicorns, in which they propose something. By they, I mean like various business owners will propose something, and it's so outlandish that it could work. It could work. And so they'll throw all of this cash. And if they look a particular way and present in a particular way, you're more likely to get this funding than other people.
But let me interject, because see, that was the thing that I found interesting, because there is nothing, well, maybe because, to me anyway, maybe to a bunch of old white men sitting around a boardroom and who've got cobwebs around their stones and pillars and whatnot. there was nothing particularly dynamic or charismatic about Elizabeth Holmes.
No,
I'm
there
like, these
isn't.
people are just kind of throwing, and then she affected this just kind of fake. I think that was another fascinating thing. She started wearing the Steve Jobs black turtlenecks, and then she took on this
She
really
dyed her hair blonde. She's not
Robotronic.
a natural blonde. She dyed her
She's
hair
not a
blonde.
natural blonde.
No, she's
And
not
then
a natural
she started
blonde.
talking. She started talking like
Into her
this.
chest.
Yes.
You know, that classic technique to and so she wanted to like she put herself as alluring because, you know, she put on her face as you see her. That is not how she looks in real life. That is a created face. The hair is not naturally blonde. She's a brunette, like 99% of the people on Earth are. She is a brunette. It was interesting in the Carolou book. She dyed it so that she can look very thin. You know, she did all these things to look as heteronormative as possible and as attractive in a cis female way. But then she's doing this thing with the voice, the turtlenecks, and the modest clothing to convey a sense of seriousness. And, you know, part of it too is that her family is coming from they have worked in the medical instruments field. And so they were already connected to all of these very wealthy people in a social sense. And so, including Forbes, by the way. And you see, and so if there's anything, I think if anyone's watching this, one thing I want people to take away from this is do not believe anything that Forbes publishes, and to view anyone that they put on their front cover with a jaundiced eye.
Yeah, I mean, they said that Kylie Jenner was self-made, for Christ's sake.
Right.
When we all know she got a really far head start.
Right. And even how they evaluate things like this is, you know, they take revenues and then they multiply it by so much, and then they will say, well, and if this person owns this percentage and therefore they owe a billionaire. That's sketchy math. But the real thing here is that many people called out Elizabeth Holmes. They called her out way back in 2013. They called her back. I know I did. I was not the only one. But because of how investment business works at this level, there was almost a need to believe in Elizabeth Holmes. And we'll get into that with SBF in a broader sense when we get to SBF.
And well, you know, and also this is how, and when I say whiteness, for the people in the nosebleed seats, I'm not talking about whiteness like super fit. I mean the institution of whiteness. This is how whiteness works. It's like you can just sneeze an idea, and then people, especially in Silicon Valley,
fart an idea,
they will
people will say, "Oh yes, it's perfume." Yeah,
they just throw all their money at you, and it's like, you know, you put on a robot voice and a monotone robot voice, and people, especially when you're I guess, because like I said, to me there is nothing particularly charismatic.
No, and she's not really, and she's not smart. She's smart. She's smart enough to run a scam.
She's smart enough to run a scam, and I think, you know, you either have to be a charismatic, you know, millennial, or not millennial man, or you have to be in terms of, again, within the construct of whiteness, a typically kind of attractive, because again, that's relative, white woman with blonde hair, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like people just throw their money at you. So Yeah, there's just so much to unpack about this woman. But again, I was more pissed that
Patient.
she was only found guilty of bilking millionaires, and how the patients, you know, who suffered the most, and like some of whom died, they didn't get any justice. Before we move on to the next scam, I would like to remind people to head on over to www.coffeerhetoric.com and check out the archives. You know, during the heyday of blogging, I write, I'd be writing my behind off, but there's some really great things in the archives. Read it. There's other information over there. Also, I am on Instagram under Coffee Rhetoric, or my personal Instagram, which is public, Tiff J Writer. And don't forget to, because I guess I'm supposed to say this, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I guess I'm supposed to say that to get on the algorithm. And also I'm on Twitter, Coffee Rhetoric, and then my personal Twitter account is
Girl, you still on Twitter?
72. Yeah, you know what? Not really. I poke over there to see what's trending. I like to go over there to see what's trending because a lot of stuff breaks over there. But since that I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but since that funny looking mother clucker took over, definitely not. I just peek over there and I'll share something, but not really. So you don't gotta go over to Twitter, but I am over there if you want to check for me on Twitter. But since that dude, I had to mute him because it's like if I see your ugly face on my feed one more time,
get off my feed, right?
And also, so yeah, go to Coffee Reddit, check out the archives. You know, let me do that little thing right there. Okay. Yeah. Right. And also, I am working on a very sweeping, what I think is a very good and very thorough, piece inspired by the Tory Lanez easy trial. And, you know, it turned into one thing. I was only specifically supposed to be writing about that, but it turned into a completely different animal. I decided I wanted to delve into the brief history of how celebrity news and gossip has been reported. So I do a brief history into that, and then I do a brief history about blogging, and then into the evolution of social media and how gossip blogs have chosen to report on the case with the state of California versus Daystar Tory Lanez Peterson and the whole Megan Thee Stallion hate train. I'm almost done with it. I'm, you know, as Erykah Badu said, I'm an artist. I'm serious about my shit. So no, I am a writer first and foremost. No matter what I do, I am a writer. So it turned into this like sweeping kind of long form essay, and it made me realize how much I missed the heyday of blogging. But anyway, that will be going behind a paywall on my Ko-fi website, Ko-fi website, and I will be publishing that there. You can read it for a very budget friendly price of $2. Okay, it's going behind a paywall because people don't be appreciating and caring about blogging no more and the art form of writing, long form writing. So that'll go behind there. And that's just that. And I also, let's take a quick 30 so I can pour myself some more rosé. So I can press the gas on the roasting and gagging. So let's take about 30 minutes. Let me see what I want to play. You know what? Let's go with this.
To be famous is so nice. Suck my dick, kiss my ass. We have sex every night with my famous friends. Nice. Suck my dick, kiss my ass.
Back. Okay, and we're back. Let's see. We have a comment. Ah, justice for billionaires, right? Always justice for billionaires because they're so oppressed. So let's go on to the next scamming ass mother effer. Oh, okay. Okay.
This fucker.
Now,
I hope he watches
Fyre
this.
Festival, Billy McFarland, the Fyre Festival fraud.
God,
The
you
thing-
know, I wanted to feel sorry for those folks, but at the end of the day, I feel so bad. I just laughed. Honestly.
the Fyre. Now, so this guy, where to start? Let's see. Fyre Festival's fraud. Now we all heard of the infamous Fyre Festival, that the luxury music festival that never was. Now let's see. Billy McFarland, the mastermind behind the scam. He's a con artist who co-founded along with rapper Ja Rule. Because Ja Rule was also heavily pushing the
He
Fyre
was,
Festival.
yeah.
Ja Rule, along with Ja Rule, a trash luxury festival to promote the Fyre app. And I guess the Fyre app was supposed to be this thing that was supposed to help book musical artists for events or whatever. And he fucked over. I think the thing that pissed me off about the Fyre Festival is how they found like this piece of island over in the Bahamas that was owned by a bunch of colonizers and stuff, and was just kind of left there. So I think the thing that pissed me off the most about the Fyre Festival is how he fucked over so many Bahamian business owners, like small entrepreneurs and working class people, and he just effed over the island. So many hardworking islanders got screwed over for their labor. Okay. He also suckered a lot of dense, money hungry influencers like Kylie Jenner and Bella Hadid, and models, these newfangled models, into helping promote the event. They just did it because when money is involved, they're not going to vet the thing that they're promoting. Because you see a lot of these assholes promoting Dookie tea,
No, literally.
They're not going to vet.
I'll jump in with this real quick for 30 seconds. And we'll get to this when we get to like SBF and Carolyn Ellison and all of that. A lot of this is indeed that was very much one of the first frauds I saw that was very much driven by social media, like really driven by this gassing up of certain social media influencers. And it was intent. And in my opinion, people have tried to say, he didn't have project management skills to do all of that. As someone who has been in the raving space for over 25 years, I no, this was intended to be a fake it until you make it, a sort of vaporware, but for festivals sort of thing. This was intended to be something that they hoped would coalesce at the last minute while they pocketed all the cash.
Yep.
This was intended to be like that. Yep. And so, again, there's that thread of faking it until you make it. I've been at a large number of festivals, not Woodstock 99. Oh, good Lord. I couldn't afford that at the time. But I've done my share of EDM festivals and my share of Essence music festivals. Hello. And no, this was intended to be a way that someone was going to make their mark, and they were going to use other people's money to do exactly that. I'm gonna, and it's your show, babe, so I'm gonna shut up.
No. You know, you've got something rumbling around. I want you to jump in there. But basically, that's true. And because you know he made all these, this was supposed to be a luxury music festival. He made all that was supposed to have all these VIP tents on the beach, and he made all these promises, but he never really followed through with any of it, and he just bilked and wasted a lot of people. And when I say a lot of people, I'm not talking about the spoiled people who flew down there wanting to be in their multi-$1,000
that people came there and paid a lot of money, and I do feel sorry because the way that these young people consume social media, they're presented with luxury, and we're East Coasters. So we know what luxury looks like, what it feels like in a way. And we're that late Gen X, that late Gen X, early millennial group. But we know what luxury feels like, what it smells like, how an atmosphere is created with luxury. And we know that in a way that the younger people who were scammed by this do not know. So they're working their $12, $15 an hour jobs, and they're saving up for this shit, thinking like they're going to live like the people they see or experience life the way that they see people on TikTok do. And they got screwed.
They got screwed royally. It turned, and going back to the influencers, like Kylie Jenner and Bella Hadid and all these models into promoting the event, not really knowing if it was legit. They did it not disclosing the fact that they'd been paid to do it. So they never. So there's that. And also, I don't mean to laugh because I'm really not laughing because just how the scope of just the F-ish of this festival. So, off the rip, the event experienced problems related to construction, security, food, accommodation, medical services, and acquiring the actual artists to perform at the festival.
That's a crazy thing. I can see if accommodations was shit, but the performers showed up, because that happened at the Woodstocks when we were teenagers in the 90s. When I was a teenager in the 90s, rather. That happened. The artists showed up. The artists made sure they were fucking paid.
I don't even remember what the hell. How old was I in the? I don't even remember what I was doing in the 90s.
Oh God!
Yeah. I was a teenager. Yeah, I think I was a teenager in the 90s.
Because I was barely. I was in by the late 90s. I was 20. So
I was a teenager.
You were a teen. I know. I remember you were a teenager. You were a kid. So yeah. So no. But I remember those festivals. I remember the mega. I remember the mega rap shows, the mega hip hop shows where people showed up 90 minutes late, but you got to party all night long, and stuff like that. People showed up.
I remember that. I remember being a grown teenage grown but nerdy teenager, waiting round to the West Indian Club in my city, trying to waiting for Biggie Smalls and that dude Black and all them people to show up, and waiting 2 hours past their call time. Their call time was at 9, but they didn't show up until 1 a.m.
At 1 a.m. Right. Yeah. I remember those days. So that's one thing. But this dude, like I was saying, with the whole idea of vaporware and applying the principles of vaporware to real life situations, he was applying that and just say, oh, all these artists are going to show up, and probably thinking, well, if 1/3 of those artists show up, then it's a success. And it wasn't. I've done Above and Beyond. I've done Prodigy. I've done I've done Garbage. All of these shows with the added smaller artists, both here on the West Coast and growing up in New York City. I did like all of the rap shows in New York City and up in New Jersey. And like you said, we would wait until 1 a.m. and they would like, oh, all right, we're going to perform now and do all of that. We've been there. But with this, the idea, honestly, what I felt what Billy McFarland was trying to do was, one, it's not so much like the project management experience, but he wanted to attach his name to these notable people so that he could then use this as a case study and say, yeah, I can big up these people on social media. Well, you can't do that. You have to deliver the show. You have to deliver the product.
You have to. And so, these people flew out round to that Bahamian island,
Yes.
and instead, it literally turned into just kind of like this dystopian clusterfuck. It turned into Lord of the Flies. So instead of luxury villas and gourmet meals, festival goers paid hundreds of dollars for.
Right.
The event was canceled. While many of them were there, folks were stranded on Norman's Clay, the island, and they received dry, what back in the day, I don't know if people still use this term, we call them choke sandwiches, like the sandwiches without any condiments on
no mayonnaise.
There's no mayo, no mustard, no nothing. No nothing. No olive oil, no nothing. They just got cheese sandwiches and FEMA tents at their accommodation.
That was a bit to me. Like, I've been in luxury glamping. And let me tell you, luxury glamping when you're with like your husband or your boyfriend and you're like lying there and you're listening to the one couple to this part, one couple to this part, and one couple behind you. They're all fucking, and you're just like, oh God, oh God, why me and why us right now?
Here's the he is a two-parter, so he had to do 2 parts. So Billy McFarland, eventually he stranded all them folks. And then some people got their stories out. This was really big during the time. People got their stories out. People were selling Fyre, the abandoned, like the Fyre Festival merchandise that was supposed to be sold at the festival. It started being sold triple the price on like eBay because the story was so hot at the time. So people were just selling like old Fyre Festival merch on like eBay and other merchant, commerce sites for triple the price, and people were paying for it just because the story. You have this weird thing where a story is trending and it's super duper hot, and people waste their money. So anyway, he essentially ended up pleading guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud. Then on June 12th of 2018, he was charged with, while he was out on bail, he was charged with selling fraudulent tickets to events such as the Met Gala, Burning Man, and Coachella. This was while he was out on bail.
While he was
out on bail for fraudulent behaviors, he was still scamming.
Right.
And so on October 11th, 2018, he was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. He was actually released this spring, March 2022, to a halfway house. And then his house arrest was officially over in September, right? So then in October
back to
scamming. Ooh, what's my next scam? Birdman hand rub. What's my next scam? So then he announced in a TikTok and YouTube video that he was planning a new business venture called Pert or whatever. Yeah, I think it's
What the
Pert.
fuck that
Right.
is? I
So
don't know.
then, despite being a con artist, despite having served time in federal prison for scamming people, because even before Fyre Festival, he had this like nefarious kind of credit card thing going on.
Yeah, he
Uh,
did. Yeah.
so then, despite being a con artist, this is when I say watch whiteness work, because you can be a scamming ass scammer. So despite all that, McFarland
He still
has found
has
it
people
even
who will
easier.
invest in him, who
Yeah,
will pick him
he's found.
up,
He said
and still, oh God, yeah,
he said
yeah.
it's been even easier for him since he's been out of jail to take meetings with executives.
Oh, because that was the, and like I said, that was the case study. That was the proof of concept, right? Now that he is a proven scammer, these executives will say, you know what, this dude is a good scammer. He can get the money. He can get the money. He can get it rolling in. He can get the notoriety on the social media to bring in the dollars. So since all publicity is good publicity, we can have him do whatever.
Right? I mean, and again,
Why are you so mad?
Because you're a liar.
8/28/2014. $35. Fraud.
Get out of here, suck my dick, bitch.
$33.
What's up?
Fraud. $15.33. Fraud. $8. What type of bitch steal $8?
so yeah,
God.
and they're just lining, and they're still just lining up. And again, watch whiteness work. So
It's true.
next scamming ass motherfucker. Ooh, my favorite. See, this one, I think we're both conflicted about her.
I love her, honestly. I have such
She's a fraud. She's because this, I find her fascinating. I'm conflicted.
I do too.
She's a fraud. She comes from now. Here you have a fraudulent frauder who's from a working class family, and then she's like,
no, I feel, and that's part of the reason why I have a soft spot for her. Like when I was going to school in Ripon, and we would have our, like, because I was on a dean's list, blah blah blah, I would get dressed up, and people would instantly assume, you know, based on my very starchy British name and, you know, the way I conducted myself, but because, you know, as a person who grew up in New York City, you take acting classes, because all of us did. People really thought I was several steps above the working class girl.
Don't even get me started on that, because being from Connecticut,
we'll do this after the show. But people really thought I was some high class chick. And Tiffany, it would have been so easy to scam that part of Wisconsin. I can't even tell you.
oh, child. Not only for me, it wasn't that, and it was always like, oh, because I had a very, and I still do, and I even have people on the street. Sometimes I'll just be in jeans, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the accessories, maybe it's how I style. I'll literally be in jeans and like a type of cardigan and a beret, a hat, one of my many hats, and people will be like, Miss, you look real nice, young, but and in Ripon, but it will always be from like a place of these white people from a place of resentment. It's like, how dare you look presented? For me, it was kind of like coming from places of resentment, and then I would have people come up to me, because Ripon is a very small Midwestern town, and you know how that style can be. But even when people come from money, but I got that same thing, except there would be just this kind of resentment behind it. Like, look at this uppity bitch. Because I would have people literally say to me, I had someone say to me, without ever having had any kind of conversation with me or anything. And I remember I was working in the library, and I remember which a position I had to fight for, because they wanted to put all the black and brown kids in the cafeteria.
Exactly.
when we applied for jobs. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But I fought for that library, and it's like, bitch, I worked all 4 years of my high school in a library, so you need to put me
Yeah.
in here. So anyway, uh I literally had someone come up. Someone I didn't even know who she was. She was just like, I helped her with, library thing. But then she was like, you're really cool. And, being from Connecticut, and just my demeanor, I thought you were a total bitch. But you're just really cool. And that just made me dislike her. And it's like, oh wow, have we had a conversation? You just
Yeah.
kind of went because
Well,
of where I was taught.
because of that. The thing is that if you don't know, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I and because I was very carefree. I did not give a fuck, and so because I didn't give a fuck, I think people like that gravitated people towards me because like, oh, she really doesn't give a fuck, like none. And I'm like, yeah,
I
I
know.
totally don't.
For me, it was that, but it was almost like, oh, look at her and her accessories. What a bitch.
Right. Look
Look,
at her
people
accessories.
literally thought I was.
Complexion. And I'm like, you need to like just like instead of, don't be, a hate
I mean,
us.
I didn't care,
Hate
but
us because you hate us. Don't be like that. Be like, embrace it. And so
But
that was
seriously,
my
people
thing.
thought, but seriously, I didn't care because I'd be like, well, yeah, I don't know you and you don't know me.
No,
But
me,
really,
yeah.
people
That's
legit
what
thought.
brings me to Anna was that I really
But
like
it would have been
pointing at
easy to scam those people. Because literally people thought I was the Black Regina George, and so if you were
exactly.
thinking that, it's like it would have been so easy for me to. Ooh, people think I'm the Black Regina George, and they think that I'm like Prudence Knight from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So
Yes.
you can see how easy it would be to be a working class Black woman, out of her element in this Midwestern, at this small liberal arts college in the Midwest, where people come from more privileged backgrounds than me. It would have been so easy for
It would
me
have
to
been so
scam.
easy. It would have been so
Yes.
so
And
easy.
so that's why I think
So
I
easy.
get it with her. I think that's why a part of me gets it with
That's
her.
why I
It's
liked
just like,
it. Exactly.
it's just like, wow, I could have been scamming. I could have said that I was from Zamunda. I could have said I came from.
I had people who were willing to put me up in apartments in Paris. And we'll talk about that after the show. I had people who were willing to put me in apartments in Paris. I had people who were willing to underwrite me to study for a year in Italy because I would
I didn't
sing.
get all
I was
that.
part of the
I
opera.
did get invited to strange people's houses in town. Like, oh,
Yeah.
look at you. Let me feed you. Come to my house and let me give you this elaborate
I
lunch.
was invited to use people's lake homes in Green Lake and then along like the boundary waters up in Michigan. I was offered a lot of things, and
Yeah.
it would have been incredibly easy for me to disrespect these people and
Yeah.
scam them out of even more. And because what and there is a certain boundary you have to take when you are a working class girl and you are in that point of your youth and presentability, that you make a choice to scam people or not. And
Yeah.
part of the reason why I have a genuine soft spot for Anna. Yes, it's whiteness at work, and I feel it's whiteness at work done right. Okay. But also, I feel for Anna because she studied these people and her idea, and the reason why she was scamming people is not necessarily, again, it's the vaporware idea. Her idea for the club, for the art club and stuff, that wasn't a bad idea.
It wasn't a bad idea, but I have to ask you before we get into Anna's credentials. So, you know, all these things people were offering you. I would imagine that you were like
donations, 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 gifts, 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 more gifts, more gifts, more gifts.
And well, part of that, it was part of that was when you are a young woman, and if you adhere to a certain range of cis female presentability, which I did at the time, yeah, people will trip over themselves to give you things. They will. They absolutely will. And the presentability does not equal being a great beauty. The things have been written
and I
about.
think that's key. I think that's key. And I guess when I say, going back to Elizabeth Holmes, when I said she wasn't particularly charismatic or, you know,
No, not at all.
but there was something
she presented an image that people could rally around. The same with Anna, and the same with me when I was in my 20s and I was working in Hollywood and stuff like that. I had men come out of the woodwork offering me all sorts of things. And when you're between that age of 20, from 16 to 30, I would say when you're a young woman and you adhere to certain things of cis female presentability in this country, then yes, people are willing to give you things if you are able to charm them out of it. And I did. And if she didn't hose that sister, I would absolutely say, oh yes.
Let's get into some of the things.
Yes, let's get into it.
First and foremost, Anna Sorokin, or Anna Delvey, depending on what I call her.
What her name is this week.
Art world. She's art world fraud, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, in the art world, it can be it can be very superficial, the art world. So I would imagine I can see the considering the world that she insinuated herself into, it's easy to scam them people. Even when you're a multi-million, even when you are everybody's a clout chaser.
Yes.
In that, within that. So let's see. So she's a Russian-born German con artist born to working class parents in the Soviet Union. She posed as a wealthy heiress to access the wealthy elite New York social and art scenes from about 2013 when she came to the United States to 2017 when she got busted, right?
Right.
So then she relocated from Europe. So she relocated from Europe to New York City in 2013. She lived in luxury hotels while scamming. She built a bunch of rich folks, etc., and so forth. So most of her victims are wealthy clout chasers.
Which, right? You know, again, I have no problem with.
Yeah, because most of the people she built were, and then she used fake documents and wrote bad checks to fund her lavish lifestyle and to stay in all those luxury hotels for extended periods of time. She was convicted in New York of attempted grand larceny in the second degree, and theft of services, and was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison. She only served 2. She was remanded into the custody of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for deportation to Germany. However, she was released in October. She was paid $320K by Netflix for the rights to her story, and then she opened an art show in May of 2022 in New York City.
Yes, she did.
Whiteness. And you were saying about the sister, I can't remember her name. I want to call her by name.
She was and I feel ashamed. I should have looked this up.
She worked at the hotel.
Yes.
she worked at the hotel, and Casey Duke. Now she got a lot
Yes,
of
thank you. Thank
she
you.
got a lot of the spillover perks. However, I feel like she kind of got shafted because, she became good friends with Anna Delvey, and she got a lot of the spillover perks from Anna scamming. However, um, she sold some rights to Shonda Rhimes or something. Like, her
Yes, she did.
story was so, but then she got pushed out, which I didn't like, I believe.
Yes.
There was another Black woman in the equation too.
I believe she was so there was Casey Dukes who worked at the hotel, and there was another woman who
A life coach.
life coach. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And so that was the only honestly sticking part for me. But honestly, other than Casey being taken for a ride and the other
Oh no,
woman
I'm sorry. Just for clarification, Casey Duke was the
she
life
was the
coach.
life coach. She's the life coach.
The
I was
woman, the other Black woman, that worked at the hotel, and that worked with Shonda Rhimes. I want to get her story right too,
yes.
because at one point I was following her because she worked at the hotels, and Nefertari Davis. She got
Yes.
pushed out. She was the one that got the spillover perks and that befriended Anna, and that essentially, because remember when that article that went viral came out about Anna, she was featured in that article, and she was getting a lot of notoriety, and she was supposed to be working with Shonda Rhimes on the life of Anna Delvey's story, but I think somehow she got pushed. When they got what they needed, she got pushed
Yeah,
out of the
exactly.
project. So Nefertari Neff Davis, and then the other Black woman that was kind of exploited was the life coach, Casey Duke.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. So that was my only, to be honest, bits with that. I literally, but regardless of that, it's whiteness done right. If
Mm-hmm.
whiteness as an institution wants to chase young women who present themselves in a particular way, if whiteness wants to chase after the illusion of easy living through the exploitation of labor and capital, if whiteness wants to present itself as something that is illusory and fronted by youth and beauty, then I have no problem with Anna doing that. I literally don't. Because we should understand that whiteness as an institution is illusory, it is exploitive, and it is something that most people cannot live up to because it is a phantasm. It is nothing more. It is a cloud in an ether. It's nothing. And so that's part of the reason why I am conflicted with Anna, is because she is, I feel for her. I do feel that why wouldn't she come to this country, and she does. And what's very interesting is that in all of these magazine stories, the writer takes pains to point to her as not being particularly pretty.
Yeah.
Right.
And like that matters.
And that to me points to things, because charismatic people don't need to be pretty.
Exactly.
They don't need to be beautiful. They need to pull you in with their life force. So it's very interesting how the media is kind of complicit in upholding this ideal of whiteness, because they're saying, well, this white girl is not exactly pretty. And I'm looking at Anna and saying she is a perfectly plain white girl that could be any white person's relative, and she is well groomed. And so it's very interesting how the media has tried to prey on her looks and on her perception of youth and on beauty, and showing how illusory all of that is.
This is true. And so, again, she's back to making waves in the art world. And I don't think she's been, I could be wrong, I don't think she's been deported yet.
No, so there's this whole thing now where she's in a limbo. She's in a limbo. And, but at the, you know, she's in limbo, and because honestly she's done her time, and because she's done her time, she's tied up in court, because since she's done her time, that does not then mean she needs to be deported, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why she's in this limbo right now. It's, you know, it by our own fucking constitutional law, she's paid her debt, quote unquote, debt to society. Why kick her out of the country? She's done.
Because she scammed white elites, and you know,
there you go. And
yeah,
that's the sticking point.
So
they're saying, oh, well, it's not enough that you've been thrown in jail for essentially just living off somebody else's dime. She did not. She's not a Bernie Madoff or an SBF, which I know we're getting to. She's not any of those. She is a woman who wanted to start an art, who wanted to fake it until she make it. She wanted to vaporware as a lifestyle, and she did not cause any real material harm to people other than Casey Duke, in which her money was fucked with, which
yeah,
but,
and then she kind of you know, and Casey Duke did a lot of emotional labor with that whole white women leaning. And I'll say Neff, she was more exploited by the industry. Like we want your story, we want you, and then it's kind of like, we got what we need, we're gonna push you out.
Right.
So, let's see.
Right.
Ooh, we're here. We're here. Do we need to take a quick break before we
Let's take a quick break, because girl, I'm gonna talk. All right.
Take a quick break. I have the perfect 30 minutes countdown for this. We will be back in 30, because this is the nitty gritty.
We need to talk.
One more. And then we've got one more, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Fuck these fuck niggas forever and ever and ever, for all the shit you put me through. You want this shot? Y'all niggas corny, I know it. Y'all all can kiss my ass. Fuck these niggas for straight.
This time, the fabulous foursome face their most evil foe. They don't know it now, but Dr. Doom could be one of the immortal escapees from Pandora's box. And if you don't believe me, bring your skeptical little ear a little closer.
If the picture paints 1,000 words, then why can't I paint?
Could I love you more? Time was running out. Could I love you more? Oh, right now, baby.
The beat is sicker than the blood in your stool. The way it repeats could trick you like a stuttering fool, uttering butter king jewels. His mother been cool, schooled her how to wash away the crud in the drool pool. Made his chrome dome glisten. At first he couldn't tell she had a chromosome missing. Kept a spare somewhere in these underwear. He swear he helped her get the gum out.
We are back. We are back.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
back. So let's take a deep dive. Now, this is the latest fraud. This is Bernie Madoff type of Ponzi
2.0.
scheme.
2.0.
So fraud. Sam Bankman-Fried, right? Am I saying that right? Crypto
Yes, you
fraud.
are. Crypto
So
fraud.
before we start roasting and gagging, let's go down the brief list of
The indictments,
what?
baby. Yes.
So Sam Bankman-Fried is the founder and CEO of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX and cryptocurrency trading firm Alameda Research. Prior to FTX's collapse, Bankman-Fried was ranked the 41st richest American in the Forbes again, legitimizing these people in the Forbes 400 and the 60th richest person in the world by the world's billionaires. Bankman-Fried was a major donor to a lot of political campaigns. I mean, he was going to the White House and everything.
Yes.
He planned to spend tens of millions in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. He was accused of stealing billions of dollars from customers of his crypto trading platform in a massive, years-long fraudulent scheme. He faces 8 counts of fraud and conspiracy. His company basically had a no risk management framework. We'll delve into that a little bit. He was recently arrested in the Bahamas, and here's my favorite part. He posted millions and millions of dollars to his bond was millions and millions, which he posted bond. So now he is currently under house arrest at his parents' $4 million home in California. Let's get into it. Should we go to his girl? Should we dog walk Sam, then go to the on-off girlfriend, or do the
there's so
girlfriend?
much. There's so much. There's so much. There's so much.
Let's dog walk.
Let's begin with my I threatened promised a philosophical theorem that the through line with all of these delightful scammers we've been talking about tonight is the idea of vaporware, in which you have various companies that have software as service. They promise a particular service or product, and they get the funding or interest or both into it. And then you have the research and the R&D go into it, and you may or may not get a product at the end. This, I believe that not just this is a fraud. Let's be clear, this is a fraud. And his whole thing of effective altruism and all of that other like bullshit, that philosophical philanthropy bullshit, it's bullshit. And I'll get into how and why that is bullshit. But the real thing is this, to keep in mind. Up until the beginning of this past year, which was 2022, he was being feted by The Economist, by Forbes, by Bloomberg, by any number of other business magazines as being the next best thing since sliced bread, even though the crypto space, as we understand it, is very, very young. And I feel like I should take this time now to reiterate what I said at the top of our discussion, is that I work for a peer-to-peer payment and payment company that has significant interest in Bitcoin. And my opinions should not be taken as reflecting the viewpoints of the company that I work for. So let me just get that out of the way. Having said that, I want to get into the whole idea of the why of crypto. The why of crypto is to stand as opposition to what is called fiat currency. What is called fiat currency, or what we use as currency, is no longer based on things that are tangible, like gold or silver or minerals. It is based on what our government saying we are good for it. So it is the strength of the governments of each currency that determines its value and worth, not gold, not silver, whatever. But if you are saying that, then the laws of that particular land also govern how the currency is used. In the United States, in our government and in our laws and how we conduct our lives, the reality of racism and classism is baked in. It is baked in. If you make a cake and you put a tablespoon of salt in the cake, no matter how you divide the cake, the salt is still there. The same thing, that is the same thinking that goes behind the idea of cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So basically,
Right.
So basically, like, for me, and from the way I understand it,
Right.
and from some of the research I do with like NFTs and cryptocurrencies, a lot of economists and financial experts say stay away, because it's mostly a world that's a playground for elites and rich people who have money to burn, and it's almost like an MLM scheme that they try to sell to regular. They have the money to burn to invest in all this stuff, and it's almost like a thing, kind of like that they kind of, for lack of a better word, residually try to peddle as this idea to everyday people who don't have the capital, the excess money to be experimenting with this kind of thing.
There is a thing where you can, and again, understand that my opinion can be colored by my employment. And so I'm trying to be open with this. There is a way to invest and use cryptocurrency as what it was intended to be, right? So when Satoshi came out about 15 years ago or so, with this idea of cryptocurrency based on the proof of work that computers use their energy for, the whole idea is that if we're doing these computation and using this energy, that is the equivalent to a government backing things. And if we use that energy that goes into these computations, we can then open up the use of currency to enable comfort and a degree of sharing in the world's resources. This comes from the intentions come from a very well-meaning place. The idea that because, governments and currencies backed by governments can be associated with racists and Nazis and misogynists. Why do that when you can be within a group or a network of people who don't believe that way? We say the currency is worth what we say that it is. And that way you can purchase land, purchase homes, and that sort of thing. But as you know, and as I know, Tiffany, good intentions do not always mean good outcomes, because humans are assholes. And SBF here is was an entitled, coddled asshole. He used I think he's the tip of the iceberg, right? There's been more, but prior to this, a number of stable coins on the cryptocurrency network have gone under. They went under this year. The Genesis project, things like that, they went down this year. Good intentions don't always mean good outcomes, because people saw cryptocurrency, came into cryptocurrency as a way to have an asset to invest in, which is different from currency to use to trade for goods and services. Using currency for trade to goods and services is different than using a currency as an investment hedge. The problem and the issue with SBF and the other platforms that went under this past year in 2022 is that they gained cryptocurrency as an investment asset instead of expanding the network of users to use cryptocurrency to actually purchase solid, real assets. It's the same issue with NFTs, by the way. You have like this stationary, basically JPEG of an image that has your.
Sorry, this whole I won't get into it, but for me, the whole concept behind NFTs cracked me up. But I won't even get into it.
It's very Beanie Babies. I get it. It's very Beanie Babies. It's very Beanie Babies. But the whole, that points to the idea that good intentions don't necessarily mean good outcomes.
So this dude, he was just essentially just playing with people's money.
He did. And so that's where we get into, and that's what I wanted to transition to. He was playing with people's money. He was telling people all of these things that I'm telling you now about how cryptocurrency has the ability to liberate people from the racist and violent chains of the currency that's in their countries. And he was telling people all these things. He was also gassing up the idea of effective altruism, which is, philosophically speaking, suspect at best and evil at worst. Because you literally had these people, and I forget, Pete Singer up in Oxford in Great Britain, saying that the most effective way to help people see in charity is for well-bodied people in the Western world to get high-paying jobs, make as much money as they can, and then set up charitable organizations that can help the most people as possible. And this sort of thinking does not question the systems that we work in and that we live in that make it necessary to have charity in the first place. So, but there are those journalists and writers that believe in this bullshit because they come from similar backgrounds as SBF. So what I was saying a few minutes ago about Anna and the fact that she saw through all of this and said, hey, I'm interested in arts, and why not take these people for a ride? Well, that same sense of clear-sightedness and introspection does not exist in much of the tech journalistic sphere, because they are also coming from the same backgrounds as SBF. They're coming from backgrounds where both parents are extremely successful people who have paid for real estate, who are able to send their child to MIT for physics. They were able to network their child into getting into these spaces in which they can say this bullshit and become billionaires off the backs of other people.
You're right, because if I'm understanding correctly, because you look at these people, you look at people like Trump, and you look at people like the Elon Musk, and even with people like Sam Bankman-Fried and his on-off girlfriend, SBF wasn't some kind of mastermind or genius in any of this stuff.
No, I mean, if you look at it's a shock, but now I'm kind of used to it.
None of these people were. Like, Elon Musk isn't some genius engineer.
He didn't finish. We finished college, Tiffany. We finished college with paper in hand. Elon Musk does not have paper in hand for any.
He's not an engineer, and Sam wasn't an expert. And
no, Sam does have his degree in physics, but the thing is,
but in terms of the scam,
in terms of like running a company and having like any sense of project management, no.
It seems like he and his cohorts were just kind of winging it. Like
they were not just they were winging it. So he worked at Jane Street, and Carolyn Ellison, his girl, she worked at Jane Street, and Jane Street basically was a setup for women to get into Wall Street and investment to increase that share of people doing those decisions. And they both, oh God. Listen, I am a feminist and I don't like to criticize people's looks.
Let me tell you something. Over the past 2 years, I've come to terms with the fact that I am a Black feminist. I'm a woman that advocates for feminism. I am also, just to echo Roxane Gay's book, I'm also a very bad feminist. I'm a very problematic feminist. And I've come to terms to that. In fact, I've said I'm finna, and yes, I'm using finna, AAVE. I even just said out loud and proud, I'm about to be a trash, because I'm going balls to walls with some of my sister. So I've had to lean into the fact that I'm just going to be a problematic feminist. So we can kind of come here, because what an odd looking woman. And then she looks like she's 12, number one. But anyway,
she looks like she's 12 and 70 at the same time. How does she do that? How does she look juvenile and yet elderly at the same time?
She is Friedman's on-off girlfriend and partner in crypto fraud. So she's a former Alameda Research CEO. She worked closely with him with FTX. She worked closely with him. She
not only worked closely with him, but she honestly, she was one of the masterminds.
Yeah, she was.
Let's be real. She was one of the masterminds. SBF was all over social media and on the traditional media doing like the chats and getting the accolades for being 29 years old and a billionaire, and he's so jealous. But she was one of the fucking masterminds of this shit.
Here's the best part. She finally, I guess, the federal. Sorry, I feel like I'm supposed to say that when I talk about the feds. She essentially ended up pleading guilty in a court hearing. She's facing 7 counts of criminal charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering.
Yes.
Here's the best part. She agreed to, and this is bad news for SBF. She agreed to help federal prosecutors develop a case against him, along with FTX co-founder Gary Wang, who also pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy charges. And they're both cooperating with the government, with the feds. And this is definitely a wealth moment for him, because if he's found guilty, he faces 100 and something years. You know, kind of like saying was, but here she is, in action. Just to give you some idea of what, because when I say these people were basically just kind of winging it, this is what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely could pull it off without my math degree. Use very little math. Use a lot of like elementary school math. Being comfortable with risk is very important. We tend not to have things like stop losses. I think those aren't necessarily a great risk management tool. I'm trying to think of a good example of a trade where I've lost a ton of money. Well, I don't know. I probably don't want to go into specifics too much with that.
Okay.
Come back, Edie. Where you going?
Holy shit. I mean, when I was her age, and I'm now at that age where I can say that, right? When I was her age, if they sent me out as a production assistant to go get the breakfast order, you know, the breakfast and pastry order at the studio, and I forgot somebody's order, I would have been taken to the cleaners. I would have been taken to the laundromat and just cleaned out. How could you, for missing someone's Danish? And she just very breezily, and she's sitting with these brothers, right? And just very breezily, just like, oh yeah, you know, I don't have to use math or risk management tools. I just have to be really comfortable with risk. And I think when we talk about whiteness as an institution, that right there, just be really comfortable with risking other people's livelihoods, other people's lives, other people's opportunities to do good in the world, and be willing to risk that all for self-enrichment. And these two brothers are just sitting there, just right?
It's wild.
It's I'm old enough also to not be overly hurt by that anymore, right? Because because you know, those, when you get into the fever pitch that was crypto in late 2021, when we were just coming to grips with the vaccination against the pandemic. I'm not saying the pandemic against this virus is over. But when we're, you know, coming out of like the most restrictive part of this, and, you know, this fever pitch with NFTs and crypto and misappropriating those resources, they were on top of it and they were profiting off of it. And she literally said, I'm comfortable with risk. I'm comfortable with risking other people's money in bad calls, in bad usage, in bad decision making. Because at the end of the day, even if she and SPF are thrown in jail, they still have their lives, and they are not going. And they can be sentenced to XYZ. They're not going to serve those entire sentences.
She flipped pretty fast too.
Oh, of course she did. I am not. People, again, a lot of the press is surprised. I'm not surprised. These people were, and there's a reason also why they chose the Bahamas to be their polycule /
These people love
headquarters.
They love you. You look at Billy McFarland. You look at SBF. These people love exploiting countries, islands, like the Bahamas.
Right. Bahamas. So if you look at how the structure of the Bahamas acts the way Delaware acts for us in terms of credit and banking. They're offshore. It's offshore.
That's why they love. That's why scammers and nefarious millionaires and these dictators and these love putting their money, like siphoning their money offshore to Caribbean islands. Yeah,
to Caribbean islands. So it could be the Dutch Virgin Islands. It can be the Bahamas. It can be Bermuda. It can be my mother's home country of Panama. And what those countries act as is a money laundering. And it's not a surprise that someone who's invested in this space, who wanted to use the space as a way to use crypto, as a way to enrich themselves, chose the Bahamas. And because of colonialism and how the banking structures are done in the Bahamas, it makes it very, very easy. And they bought like tens of millions of dollars of high-end real estate in the Bahamas. So just as they commingled funds between those two companies, FTX and Alameda, they commingled their funds with the government and people of Bahamas. So now there is this.
That's why
there's a slot fight now with the USA versus Bahamas, which they actually had the nerve to say, "Oh, USA, you're being very racist towards these people in the Bahamas if you're gonna go after our assets." This was a thing that was said in December. Tiffany, they literally said that.
I think that's why when you mention places like your country of origin and places like Belize even, and these Caribbean, I think that's why the John McAfee, for instance, he was over in Belize wreaking havoc and doing all this kind of crazy thuggish stuff over there and exploiting the people, and they just go over to these countries. That's a whole nother thing about how these multimillionaires and billionaires go to Black and brown countries, particularly over in the Caribbean. So that's a whole nother thing. But while SBF is languishing in his parents' $4 million home awaiting trial, it'll be interesting to see what kind of time he serves, if any. Now, let's see. Do we have a comment here? It's all about the piracy, basically. Yep.
Pirates of the Caribbean. It still goes on. It never stopped. The shitty former king of England was they had to do. He was converting with Nazis. Edward the something or the other, who married Wallace Simpson. He was just an asshole, and he liked Nazis, and Wallace Simpson, because she was from the South. Of course, she liked Nazis too, and so when he abdicated to marry this woman. His brother, King George something or the other, said, "Oh my God, we have to do something with this fucker because he has to go away. He has to go." So they kicked him. So they got him off like the entire Eurosphere and put him in the Bahamas to rot and die, because that's literally what the Caribbean islands have been used for, to just get rid of like these gross ass people. But they come to these beautiful islands, this beautiful atmosphere, and they don't deserve it. They don't deserve the warmth of the Caribbean sun. They don't deserve our food. They don't deserve any of it. But they go there because they can hide and do their wickedness.
Now, I saved the worst for last.
Oh Lord.
And honestly, I didn't, because this person, this is the scammer of all scammers. And because this person, I couldn't even fit all his tomfoolery. I didn't have enough room. So I just tried to put as much as I could in the basics, because this man is a effing career criminal, a career scammer. And the fact that he's still kind of allowed to listen.
Hey girl, I just want to let you girls know that I'm a real messy bitch. A liar. A scammer. I love robbery and fraud. I'm a messy bitch who lives for drama.
Like, the fact that he's still allowed to just kind of take up space. Like, this man scams, his scams no bounds. And it's like, what does it take? What will it take? Like, honestly, at the very least, can somebody please go to Sonic and purchase an extra large milkshake?
Right.
And go to Florida and pelt him with it.
And with a milkshake. Exactly.
If the DOG is not going to hold him accountable. That's why I'm like, this man has been getting away with fraudulent behavior, with robbing people, with cheating,
since we were born.
lying,
Since we were born. Since we were born.
It's just unreal.
Why are you so mad?
But you're a liar.
8/28/2014. $35. Fraud.
Get out of here, suck my dick, bitch.
$33.
What's up?
Fraud. $15.33. Fraud. $8. What type of bitch steal $8?
I mean, this fucker won't. I mean, I think with
I altered, speaking of NFTs, I had to alter his NFT image a little bit. The front part.
Oh, Mr. Dump. The thing is that I as a New Yorker, and you too, as a person who's from Connecticut, we grew up with this guy constantly hectoring and hustling and going into like we grew up with this guy going bankrupt, but yet he's on our fucking TV about his gold-plated toilet apartment developments and stuff.
I blame Mark Burnett.
Extraordinary.
I
do too.
Blame Mark Burnett.
I do too. Because
I feel like I don't understand. This guy had basically wilted into the annals of obscurity, and then along comes Mark Burnett with the whole apprentice.
Yes.
And it's like these people, like a lot of the producers who some of the producers came out and were saying, we went to this guy. His office was raggedy and fallen. We went in and renovated his office for that
They
show to
did.
make him, to legitimize him. So it's almost like Mark
I
Burnett.
know people who worked for NBC, and they before this was published, they told me the same thing, that they went into Trump's management offices, and they were poorly maintained, and in order to do filming, right? So here's a quick rundown. For example, I have my little shack here, and if I was to have a film crew come in here, even though I've done all this work to this place, they would come in and do it again, because you have to have everything's like in high definition, whether in film or in digital, and they have to have the lighting just so, the color just so. So they will come in and repaint this place, for example, and they will do a deep clean job. Like I keep a pretty okay clean place. They would come in and clean it again, all of that stuff. But what they did was that they replaced paint and carpeting, and even the desk that he was in, they tidied up his paperwork. They went into all the other offices and tidied it up as well. They did deep cleans. They did work that at that so-called caliber should have been done on a monthly basis. They had to come in and do it all at once.
If Smoke and Mirrors were a mandarin colored swamp,
right, this would be it.
This doesn't even cover, because like when I say this guy, I don't care that he was born into a family of bad genes and weak chins, and just into a racist, the Smoke and Mirrors knows no bounds. It's like this guy and then the fact that he was legitimized enough to con his way into one of the most important roles in our country. So let's see. Like I said, this doesn't even, I had to narrow this down. It's because you see it's way to the bottom.
The rap sheet is something. My goodness.
This I put here doesn't even cover it. Let's see. He's a trash politician who conned his way into the country's highest political office with the help of right-wing sycophants. Let's see. He's a fraudulent businessman who inherited and pissed away his wealth. And again, like you said, those of us from the tri-state area knows his works. We know his doings. Atlantic City.
Oh, God. Atlantic City. Had he not put up that horrible casino, I feel that Atlantic City could have recovered. Right?
The Taj Mahal.
Yeah, the Taj Mahal, that's torn down, isn't it?
He's responsible for that, is he? Let's see.
Yes.
Trump. I start talking. Yeah, Taj Mahal.
It was turned into a Hard Rock hotel and casino. They had to go in and gut the place. They went in and gut the place and turned that into a Hard Rock. So, okay. But yeah, no, there's nothing. I have always, for the longest time, I've called him, he is the opposite of King Midas. Everything he touches turns into lead. Not
dookie. Not even lead. Dookie. Doo-doo.
Because at least lead has a purpose, right? But I mean, he touches everything and it just turns to shit. It does. He's so awful. But the thing is,
and his father bailed him out every step of the way.
Every step of the way, until he was into his 40s, right? He doesn't have. It's very interesting. Barbara Walters passed away a couple of days ago. May she rest in peace. But on the social media, people have been digging out some of her most roastery of interviews, and I love this one interview she did with Trump, where she just called out his lack of parenting empathy and skills. She called out his shitty business practices and how crappy his business was, that he wasn't a faithful husband, that, you know, she did it to his face.
And that he was and not only that, this, like I said, those of us from the tri-state area know, like, this is a man, when I say this man is a complete and utter from top to bottom fraud, like, this is a person that used to he would call into like tabloids, and he would serve as his own PR person, and he would kind of call in and leave anonymous messages
with leads.
He would call in and leave anonymous messages on to journalists and tabloid journalists. He would leave like these anonymous messages pretending to be like his own PR and press person, talking about how handsome and awesome he was and what a great businessman he was.
Yeah. So here I had to turn on the light. It's really interesting how he pops up again this year. He pops up again this year with this NFT project, which
but we'll get there. Let's see. Let's finish going. Let's see. He's a fraudulent businessman who inherited his ways. He has a history of failed business ventures. He's a pathological liar and a grifter. Yes. Charity fraud, higher ed fraud, psychopath, and twice, as just to echo K. Michelle, twice impeached POTUS, racist and xenophobic, lies about net worth. It's not in here, but I'm gonna put it in here. Housing discrimination, insurrection, stole top secret government documents after being forced out of the White House, history of frivolous lawsuits and holding up the courts, NFT trading card grift, political campaign grift, and misappropriation of funds, plotted to conspire against the United States government, clumsy wannabe dictator, tax cheat, etc., and so forth. Because, like I told you, there wasn't even no room. This doesn't even break the surface.
This is the top of the iceberg. This is the top of the iceberg. And the thing is that
he didn't pay any taxes, virtually no taxes. And during it's not even in his time in a White House, he didn't make any charitable donations, even though he lied and said, "Oh, I'm going to donate my salary to." He didn't make any charitable donations whatsoever.
He didn't, and the people who voted for him know that he didn't.
No, to go this many years without paying taxes.
Because what he does is the carried interest thing that's in the tax laws.
But didn't pay any taxes, but received millions of dollars in refunds.
Right? Because you can carry interest. At that point, what his accountants are doing is using carried interest and declaring losses. And if you run certain types of businesses, you can do that, and you're basically getting your living expenses for free at that point. And which is basically what Trump has done since we were born. This is how this family has conducted its business. It has exploited the loopholes and in our tax laws. And the loopholes, by the way, exist there, not as an accident, but as on purpose, right? So this is how this man and his family in general has made his money, from owning whorehouses, because the grandfather or the great grandfather was a brothel owner. Let's remember, to exploiting laws that exploiting laws that held up and enforced discrimination, that enforced segregation, that sort of thing. Anything that is like the absolute worst with the Trump family, they have done to
ripped off,
get money.
Tried to steal his and in some instances did his own family members' inheritances.
Oh,
Filed
the
for marriage
Mary
lawsuits
Trump's.
to steal
So
that.
Mary Trump's father. That was the whole thing with Mary Trump's father, was that he essentially stole Mary Trump's inheritance when her father, who was a pilot, when he died. He more or less like used his father and worked the refs and worked his father into giving that to him. There is no bottom
No bottom.
with this family. They are, just to call them slime is to insult amoebas and other one-celled organisms that make up slime. To call them mud is to insert the very soil. Oh, there's my order. Just a second.
Yep, take your time. Well, don't forget to visit www.coffee-rhetoric. Check out the archives at coffeerhetoric.com. There's a lot of good stuff to read. And also, just keep in mind, I am on kofi.com. I am working on a really in-depth piece that I'm going to put behind a paywall for the budget-friendly price of $2, talking about the history of how people report the celebrity news up until this point where we are with the whole Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion. No, it's not and Megan. It's the Tory Lanez trial, the state of California versus Daystar Peterson. So yeah, so look out for that. But anyway, we were saying, sorry, I was doing.
No. Actually, that's great because I had ordered some New Year's Day food. I had oat yogurt today, and I had yogurt and yoga, and that's what I had, and sparkling wine. So that's what I had today.
Because I took a couple, because all I did was take a couple naps, and now I'm sipping on rosé, and then I had some Korean ramen, and that with egg, and yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that there is to call him mud is to insult soil and water. These people are really, really awful. They're just
no,
really
they truly are, and that's why I said I didn't even have enough. This doesn't even cover
to
the bottom. So that's why I'm just like, this dude is. I don't even know if he's human. That's why I'm just like, he's subhuman.
Yeah.
And let's talk about even he even grifted when he buried his children's mother. That was a grift too, because then they buried her in a parking lot on his golf course to save on some taxes. Anyway, so yeah, this dude is the scam of all scammers. Donald Trump is a career criminal. He has been for some time. Like I said, those of us in the tri-state area, we know well before The Apprentice, well before he conned his way into the White House. Yes.
Girl, like, so when this NFT project launched, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not even going to get mad. I can't, because I knew it would sell out, and I knew that, the media would be all over this, like white on rice, right? They would be all over this, and it would be part of the next news cycle. At the same time, we're just wrapping up on the January 6th thing of last year, mind you, in which he truly did support these people making complete asses of themselves and trying to stage a Hitler-style coup. And it's to the point where with Trump, the media, the traditional media, really sees it as a selling point. They don't care. This man
I
is
don't care
bad
what her
news.
intentions are. I don't care what her intentions are. Maggie Haberman being at the forefront. I don't care. It's almost like she served as his unofficial kind of PR person from the moment he got into the White House, even though she calls herself trying to report on a lot of his. But it's like, girl, you were at the forefront of, it's almost like you were trying to serve as his unofficial PR round to the New York Times.
It's the access
A
to
Nepo
power.
job. Your Nepo job that you got there.
And so I don't know if you remember this from your art classes. Do you remember Leni Riefenstahl? Leni Riefenstahl was an artist and a filmmaker that her rise came at the same time as Hitler's rise at the end of Weimar Germany. And I'm going to say this at the upfront. Leni Riefenstahl was an incredible artist. Gorgeous eye, incredible composition. But she wanted access to power because access to power meant access to money. And so she decided to ride the Nazi train. And for decades, after all of that went down and everything else, she couldn't get work as an artist until, who is it? Mick Jagger decided to rehabilitate her and had her be like his photographer for his marriage to Bianca Jagger. I feel that Maggie Haberman is very much like Leni Riefenstahl, in which she saw an opportunity to big up her name. And so she was going to ride that train, ride the Trump train for as long as she could, but at the same time saying, oh no, I'm an objective journalist. Well, no, you're not. You're compromised in every way.
There's so many. This has been a very illuminating and fun conversation. I feel like we haven't even broken the surface in terms of
we can do months of this, darling.
But these were definitely the most notable, most nefarious scammers.
The scammers of 2022. I love it.
I love it. 2022 going into 2023, because to talk about this, I had to take a couple naps. I had to wake up and put on my mustard colored beret and some lipstick to talk about this.
Right.
And I'm so glad you joined me for this conversation. So, and then we definitely have to do some kind of similar follow-up or have another conversation, because I feel like you and I, there's just so many things that we've kind of chopped it up about that I would love to bring onto this platform to unpack. But in the meantime, if you want people to know your business, where can people find you on social media?
Well, I am doing a slow but final divorce from Twitter. So you can still, if you find me on Twitter, I'm going to be talking on Star Trek, right? So I'm on Twitter on EDS, so EDIES on Twitter. And then I'm on Mastodon now. And so
I've heard about that.
Right. And it's fun. It's fun. So the way you can find, so Mastodon is a chat media like Twitter, but it's on separate servers. So it's more of the federation than an all-encompassing Twitter, all-encompassing, instead of the all-encompassing ecosystem that Twitter is. I'm going to put my address on the...
What's your chat?
So it's Edie PDX, so EDIE PDX, and if you search for me that way, it'll be mastodon.party. So mstdn.party, and then it's EDPDX. And so what I'm going to do is put that in the chat so that people can find it.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm bringing up. That's how I know is it. Is that correct?
Here we go. There.
Find me at EDS on Twitter.
Yeah, you got it.
Mastodon EDPDX.
Yes, you got it.
Like there's so many conversations we can be having. And per usual, you can find me at coffeerhetoric.com. You'll find all my socials on there. If you don't feel like going there, then just look me up on Instagram under Coffee Rhetoric. For my personal Instagram account, I'm on there as Tiff J Writer. My account's not private, so you can find me on there. Coffee Rhetoric, Tiff J Writer. I'm on Twitter, barely, but I do get on. I type some stuff, nothing profound. I'm not as active on there as I used to be because of Weirdo. But I am on there as Coffee0072. I'm also on Twitter under Coffee Rhetoric. I'm on Facebook under Coffee Rhetoric. And I have a couple. Why do I have so many social media? I'm on Facebook. You can also find Coffee Rhetoric on YouTube, on Facebook. But anyway, in terms of my personal Facebook account, I abandoned my personal Facebook account over a year ago, going on 2 years now. So I don't post on there, whatever. And for Black women who are interested, if you have some sense, if you're not an idiot, if you're not male identified, if you're not a pick-me, and if you're
no pick-me, please.
If you're open-minded, if you have the ability to think critically, and I will vet you. It's a very small community, but it's fun. But I will vet you, and if I don't know who you are, there are a series of questions you have to answer. And like I reject a lot of people. Like if I don't know who you are and you don't answer them questions, I'm declining. However, if you're someone I recognize,
it's the Kobayashi Maru. Get it right.
If you're somebody I recognize from here or like from social media, I do have a private. That's what I'm on Facebook for. I am on Facebook. I have a private Coffee Rhetoric Facebook group. It's only for Black women, for like-minded Black women who are progressive, who know how to think critically. We cut up in there. Like I said, we're a small community. It's relatively drama-free. We cut up and it is trans friendly. So even if you're a Black trans woman, you're welcome. We talk about everything, and it's a very free and open space. We talk about everything in there. We promote ourselves. We support each other. We cut up. We roast. We gad. We act the fool. Everything. We roast the manosphere. We do all kinds of things in there. It's a fun group. It's a safe space for Black women only. Cis and trans. So there is a Coffee Rhetoric group on Facebook. If you and like I said, we promote ourselves, we promote our work, we promote our creative work, we promote our businesses, and we're just a free spirited, fun loving group on there. I think Edie's in there. So if you want to join, you can look up the Coffee Rhetoric group on Facebook, or you can shoot me an email and say, hey, I want to be in your Coffee Rhetoric group, and I might just send you the link. If I recognize you, you won't have to answer the questions. But if you're someone that I do not recognize, my computer just went idle and it's pissing me off because I hate when it does this when I'm on live stream, and now it's not letting me. Lord have mercy. Hold on, people. My computer just went idle and it went to the Alexa mode and it won't let me
we can still see you though. We can still see you.
Okay, good. Okay. So if you want to join the group, shoot me an email. All of my socials, including my email, is on my website on coffeerhetoric.com. Here's the information really quickly. Where am I? So let me flash that across the screen. So all of my socials are on here. I'm very reachable. Okay. And that's scrolling across the screen is where you can find Edie on social media. But so yeah, so if you're a Black woman, trans, or cis who wants to join the Coffee Rhetoric private Facebook group, shoot me an email. I'll send you the link. If you're someone I recognize as being safe, because it is a safe drama-free space, then I will just push you through without having to answer the questions. However, if I don't know you, you're gonna have to answer them questions before you can get in. That's a good way to vet weirdo people. On that note, let's see. Do we have a comment here? Hello. Okay. Hi. But in any event, so yes, Edie, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I
Yes.
definitely want to have you back to talk about some others, stuff.
The
So
scammers, the schools, and throw a little dash of philosophy inside. And so, I do want to close this with the idea that we're part of the scams that we are living through now from a philosophical basis is based on this idea of vaporware, this idea of 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 promising a product but not delivering a product.
Yeah.
That's the idea of vaporware. And so
and ruining people's lives.
but we ruin people's lives in that process. Your life is not software. It's not a product. It's real. And that energy that we put into earning money is also real. It's not fake. And I think the major things with our rogues gallery that we roasted this year, especially, I would say, even greater than Trump, because Trump's we all know he's a piece of shit. And the people who vote for him and who support him also know he's a piece of shit. They're doing it because when we talk about whiteness as an institution, it doesn't matter what your character is, as long as you fall into the illusion. And
Herschel Walker is a clear example of that.
Right. And so
we
what
won't get
Trump
into
has
that.
done is feed into the illusion, and people feel that they're in on it. But what's even more dangerous for me are the younger scammers, except for Anna, who I will always have a special place in my heart. But with people like SBF, with Carolyn Ellison, with Elizabeth Holmes, these are younger people who know better, and they did it anyway.
Yep. Because they had older people, the older elites
support them. Yeah. Materially and with money. Yeah.
You know what? On that note, I was so glad to have this conversation with you, Edie, because I knew when I concocted this conversation, I knew that you were the person I definitely wanted to be unpacking this with. Again, it's 2023. Again, be kind to yourself. Use what you have to do the best you can with what you have. It doesn't matter how little it is. And, if I can encourage you, do your best. Black people, you ain't got to be no magical Negro. Black woman, you ain't got to be no magical Black woman. Whatever you do, also.
Fuck that, bitch. You need to think big. See, that's no. The thing is this. No, the thing is this. Bitch, you think it's small. We need to be thinking big. You need to be thinking big, bitch. You need to be thinking big, bitch. Think big, bitch.
Yes, we need to be thinking big, bitch.
Oh, that is so true, though. It's so true.
We need to think beyond, what we think we know. And on that note, Edie, this was very fun.
Yes.
It was very fun to get tipsy on here with you.
Yes.
And those of you, again, thank you. Happy New Year. And thank you for supporting my little pocket of YouTube. I'm coming back. Edie Good night. Stay
Good
on
night.
in the back end for a second. And on that